Well, I think the light bulb moment was, I think it was the third visit to the JISC EA Foundations programme where it finally all started making sense. I've been to the first one and we'd done a lot of what EA was, a sort of an overview of what it was, but not really what you did. And then we did a lot of action learning about the issues we were facing and looking at how EA could help them, but it wasn't really covering what you did on Monday morning, which was my big issue. And that's what I wanted to understand. And then after I'd been to on the course, really, it was really the final one where everything just started to seem to slot into place. I started to understand the sort of strategic concept of enterprise architecture, what it was trying to achieve overall for the university, but then I understood the day-to-day, what you actually do when you're doing enterprise architecture and how that fits into ICT governance and why it's there. So I think that was my light bulb moment for me. So I think if I was sending anybody else on the enterprise architecture course, I'd have that feeling of stick it out, take everything in, be confused, ask as many questions as you like, and then eventually you'll get there and everything will fit in. And I've kept that attitude now on all the courses I go on. The problem I feel I've got when I go to any of these events really is that I've only worked in the HE sector since 2007. Before that I was a student and before that I was an ice skater. So higher education and the way it's all run, it's all very new to me. So I've learned an awful lot since I started the enterprise architecture course because I've really had to take in a lot of information about how the university works and its strategic alignment and our governance processes and our management structures and lots of things that I didn't really know about because I'd never had to know about them. So when I first went on the enterprise architecture course, I was still in that sort of feeling of there was lots of people there. They tended to be in a lot more senior positions than I am. I'm not that sort of high up within the university. I've recently done a sort of an evaluation of my power and influence, and I have very limited power, but starting to see that I've got a bit more influence and starting to recognise that. But when I first went to the enterprise architecture course, I didn't recognise the level of influence I had. So I was meeting people who were directors of their ICT services or who were sort of senior strategic leaders, and I had that sort of feeling of, well, they're in a position where they can actually do something with enterprise architecture, they can introduce it and they can almost give people that order that they must start looking at enterprise architecture, where I was coming almost from the bottom up really, where I was trying to introduce this concept and idea to senior managers and trying to get them to buy into it. And it just felt when I first arrived thinking, how am I going to do this, when I was struggling to understand it. I was with all these senior people and all of it didn't seem to fit together. And then, as I say, as I went through the course and I started to see what my role was and how I could use EA in my role, and started to see how I could use my role and the work I do around the JISC projects to start influencing people, I started to recognise that I actually was maybe quite a valuable person to be doing EA at UCLan. When I first looked at introducing enterprise architecture to UCLan, I was struggling to understand how I could start introducing enterprise architecture, and I looked at doing it on a project basis, but I didn't think that was going to work because you have the ICT principles and information principles, and I felt they needed to come centrally. But we recognised that we needed to kind of drip feed enterprise architecture and sow the seed of interest. So it just so happened that one of the senior managers had questioned my line manager how all the different university systems fit during the student journey from when they apply to UCLan, or sorry, even inquire to UCLan, to the point where a student graduates, and at what point do our systems touch those students, which touch points we've got, and how we can communicate with them, and how these systems all fit with each other. So it was an opportunity to try and use Archie for modelling, and I'd obviously heard a lot about Archie from the cohort that I was on in the enterprise architecture practitioner groups I've been to, and I didn't really fully understand it, so it was a great opportunity for me to really play with it. And what I was able to do was model the experience. I'm not necessarily sure I've got it 100% right, but then I was also able to explore the functions of Archie to show that I could actually then break that student journey down into the different sections of inquirer, applicant, first year student, second year student, third year, and alumni, and start to show during each of those stages which system that student was touching and how they link to each other. So that's now being taken and used to show senior managers how the systems are all working. So we've been able to model the student experience in that way, and that's again starting to introduce enterprise architecture to UCLan. When I first mentioned enterprise architecture at the university, we do enterprise architecture, but we do a very different enterprise architecture. We have people who have mapped our entire ICT system, so they know when a wire pulls out, what that wire was connected to and what systems will be affected, etc., etc. So when I first mentioned bringing enterprise architecture into projects, they were extremely reluctant because that's obviously an awful lot of work to be doing, and they didn't want to have that kind of hindrance on a project. Also, I was quite concerned with bringing in a whole new methodology. We use Prince2 at UCLan, and we use it quite effectively, particularly with ICT projects. So bringing in a great big change wasn't really going to go down well when it looked like things were going quite well as they were with our Prince2 approach. So just then started talking about just enough EA. So it was about identifying the qualities of enterprise architecture that would really help you at your university and just introducing them and making it a very light touch. So I was then able to go and look at the way that we do things at UCLan, look at enterprise architecture, identify the similarities, and start to talk about a light touch EA that was actually just a few tweaks and slight changes and just improvements to the way we do things, rather than bringing in a great big change that involved lots of work and lots of people having to develop new skills and new training and learning and understanding, etc., etc. So that was the way we started to talk about just enough EA and how we saw it to be beneficial at UCLan.